Hey guys. Well, the purpose of this video is actually a multi-purpose video. I want to go over how to fuel-proof vinyl graphics that are printed and choosing a fuel-resistant slash fuel-proof paint for planes that are glow-powered or planes that are gas that are going to have pretty good exposure to the fuel. So let's get started. First of all, this is my Goldberg Chipmunk that's almost in completion. I've been working on this on and off for several years, believe it or not, but it needed to get done this year, and now it's pretty much complete. All I got to do is build the white fairings around the gear struts, and I think it's pretty much ready to go. But an issue that I had, that I'm actually pretty proud of myself for coming up with a solution, is you'll notice that the graphics that are on this airplane are printed. Now they are basic vinyl, like right here. This is just red vinyl, but this guy is obviously vinyl, but it's printed. And the same back here. The Pennzoil is black, but the dew jobber on the top and bottom, this is printed. So why is that an issue? Well, if you're flying electric, or let's say this was a gas, this was going to be gas powered and I was just going to have an exhaust stack down here, it would not be an issue. But when it comes to glow fuel, if I were to put a drop of glow fuel right on my finger and wipe it across that vinyl graphic, I would wipe the ink right off of it. So obviously the overall solution would be make it electric. Yeah, right. Not for me. I'm old school. I decided to go with a good old-fashioned sloppy 4-stroke OS 91. Perfect for this airplane. So what do I do to make these beautiful graphics fuel-proof? And not sure if you're able to tell what I did yet. Maybe I'll let you look at it a little bit closer. What did I do? Well, what I did is I went on eBay and I found this stuff here. I think it's called Orasol, I don't know. But it's just a clear vinyl. That's all it is. It's about that wide and 5 feet long. $11. Pretty cheap. And it's just a roll of clear adhesive vinyl. And what I did is for these graphics that are up here, you know, in close proximity to my exhaust, I cut an oversized piece of that clear vinyl and put it right over top of these graphics. So the only way you can tell I did that is if you get up real close and you can kind of see the outline around them. But other than that, when you're looking at it at a normal distance, you can't even tell. And so I think that's going to work out pretty good. And the one thing I do like about having that clear vinyl over them, for those of you that have had either this airplane or similar planes in the past, the decal sheets that come with them, you remember what I'm talking about? The real thick vinyl, the real thick decals that came with these things. It almost gives that look, you know. It almost gives you that same old-fashioned decal set look. So that turned out pretty good. I'm pretty happy about it. Another thing I was thinking about doing is once all the graphics were on the airplane, I was going to mask off around each one of them and spray it with a good clear coat. I got to thinking, man, that is so much work. I don't even want to begin to think about doing that. So I think this is going to work out just fine. You know, now if I get any fuel or oil on this side of the airplane, all I got to do is wipe it clean. You know, and keep it clean, which I do. I keep my planes nice and clean. That should last a long time. So fuel proofing vinyl, that works well. Now most of us don't need to fuel proof these printed vinyl graphics anymore, either because we're flying electric airplanes or we're flying larger size gas powered airplanes, which does still have fuel on board, but the gas engines produce so little oil, You know, you're not going to, like on my Corsair for instance, you know, this is just regular black vinyl, this is regular white vinyl, but this is a printed graphic right here. This is all for the, it's white vinyl with the blue and the red printed on it. But this airplane is not going to get covered in any kind of fuel. Whatever exhaust I have is going to hit, you know, the leading edge of the bottom of the wing up there. So I don't have to worry about this at all because it's not going to come in contact with any fuel. And another method for the vinyl is like on my jet for instance. This vinyl was put on after the plane was painted, but then I cleared over the whole thing. So now I have a good clear coat over top of my vinyl, therefore they're protected. So, lost my train of thought. That seems to happen to me a lot. I'm so scatterbrained. Anyway, so hopefully that answers any questions or curiosities about the printed vinyl graphics. They're still a good option for glow-powered airplanes as long as you take that extra precaution to keep them protected. And if anybody can think of a better way to do that, please let me know, because that took a lot of time to cut oversized pieces for all these stupid things. But it really does look nice. So the other topic, matching paint or finding a fuel-proof paint that'll match your monocoat. Well, from the looks of it, you would think that I took, you know, a piece of white, a piece of red of my monocoat and took it to an automotive paint shop and said, here, make me a match. Nope, that's not what I did. Over the years, I've always leaned toward Rust-Oleum. Of course, my original Goldberg Chipmunks, or my original one and planes I built back in the 90s, luster coat was really good paint back then. You can still buy a couple colors, but the paint has gone so downhill in quality, I wouldn't even recommend using it. But it was fuel proof right out of the can. It was a great paint, and of course it matched the monocoat. So now what do we do? Well, I gave you one option. You can, you know, take a couple pieces of your covering and take it to an automotive store, or you know, an automotive paint store, and have them custom mix some paint for you. But now you have to have a gun, a compressor, a decent place to spray. You know, you got to get all your reducers, your cleaning materials, and it's a lot of work, especially if you're just doing something like a cowl. If you're painting a whole airplane, obviously not a bad idea. But for just a cowl, there's got to be a better option. So what do I use? Well, I've always liked the Rust-Oleums. Of course, white is white, the 2X, and the basic old school Rust-Oleum. These are pretty fuel resistant. Now, I say resistant, not fuel proof. Your basic core colors for these types of paints are usually pretty fuel resistant. They're not 100% fuel proof. You know, if you have an exhaust situation that's a lot different than mine, and let's say your exhaust comes out like right here and just goes right across the side. You know, this is going to have constant exposure to fuel and oil. That paint's not going to last. So what I do is, obviously I find a good rattle can paint that not only has a good color match, but I also know is going to be relatively durable. I mount my engine and choose my engine in a fashion where I can kind of pick and choose where my exhaust comes out. So if you look at this, where my exhaust comes out, I'm really not going to have very much contact to this cowl. When that exhaust comes out, it's mainly going to be hitting the side of my fuselage and the top and bottom of the wing right here. And we all know monocoat, 100% fuel proof. So no worries there. So I always take that in consideration. Or, I could have made it electric. Nah. Anyway. Excuse me. So as far as matching colors, obviously white's white. And the red, if you look at this red, and I'm underneath the fluorescent and an LED light, that is so damn close as far as a paint match. I don't think I could have got paint mixed that could have been that close. I honestly don't think I could get it anywhere near that. And of course the wingtip, I've been trying to match Insignia Blue with a spray paint for years and have only been able to get like a dark navy blue that was almost like a purple compared to this. And I finally found a paint that matches extremely well. So what I do is when I find a color that I like, I do testing with it to make sure that it's compatible with other paints that I like to use. And obviously I test it for color. And I just recently got smart and started labeling them. That one's a monocoat True Red, monocoat Insignia Blue, and of course, white's white. Now this stuff is relatively new. I'm assuming the formula is pretty similar to Rust-Oleum because it's the Valspar anti-rust armor. So I'm assuming, you know, Rust-Oleum is probably basically what it is. I don't know how this is going to hold up to fuel, but I don't really care because I'm only matching that color out here and the piece of ABS that's underneath the front of the fuselage, and if that, you know, kind of gets icky over time, I'm not too worried about it. You really can't see it anyway. But let's say this was, you know, a larger gas airplane or even an electric airplane. It doesn't matter how this paint holds up to fuel and other things like that. It just needs to be compatible with each other. And when I say compatible, these paints are basically an enamel paint, an acrylic enamel paint. That's basically what they are. And that means that there is a hardening agent mixed into the paint, which is why these will go bad on the shelf over time. But once you spray them, they have to set for, before I would ever expose any of this stuff to fuel, I'd want it to sit for at least 2 weeks. And that allows the hardener that's already in the paint to harden up. Now it's only enamel, so it will harden up, but it won't get, you know, rock solid like a 2-part urethane or epoxy. So it's still spray paint. You have to keep that in mind. But using a paint like this, like the cowl was originally painted with the 2X white, then I went over it with the red, which is also a Rust-Oleum paint, so obviously it's compatible. But you can put pretty much anything over an enamel paint. You could put, you know, a 2-part epoxy, a lacquer, a urethane. The enamel is not going to care. Now let's say I painted the cowl with a white urethane base paint, spray paint, because you can get, you know, urethane base spray paints, and then decided to put the red Rust-Oleum enamel over top of the white. That would be a very tricky situation. I don't think it would work. There's too much, what do you want to call it? There would be too much of, once again, my train of thought is just gone. It wouldn't work very well. If you were very careful, you might be able to get away with it, but it probably wouldn't work. So find colors that match, and more so when I have a situation like this where I have a pretty decent portion of the airplane that's going to be painted, so I want it to match, I choose my covering and my paint pretty much at the same time. You know, I'm not going to cover this airplane in a color that I know I can't match or I can't even get close to, which is why I stick to the core colors, Insignia Blue and True Red. They're very, very nice colors, relatively easy to match with spray paints. I mean, look at that. That's such a close match, it's ridiculous. And it's cheap too. It's cheap, it's easy, and no problems. Now, what if this was a different situation where the exhaust was in an area that's just absolutely going to plaster this? Well, you can either use a really, really good paint, you know, a good two-part, like a PPG type automotive paint, get it mixed. That's one way to do it. Or, because this is an enamel paint, you can kind of use any clear you want to put over top of this. So, if you need to clear this cowl, or, you know, the wingtips or whatever, what type of clear do you use that is fuel proof or gasoline proof? Stay away from like the Rust-Oleum clear coats or any basic rattle can clear coat. Stay away from them. They're pretty to look at, but they will not hold up to anything. Okay? Keep that in mind. I don't care what anybody else tells you. I've learned the hard way. Do not use them. The stuff you want to use is this stuff right here. If you wanted to use a spray paint, this is the Spray Max 2-part spray paint. And it's a can inside of a can. So before you use it, there's a little button that you push on the bottom and it releases a can on the inside of the can that has a hardening agent into it. So it's basically a 2-part automotive clear in a can. So once you push that little button, you've got a few hours to work with, but you've now mixed that clear coat and that can will turn into a rock in a day or two. So keep that in mind. But that type of paint, that type of clear is a 100% fuel proof, gasoline proof. I mean, it's an automotive or aircraft quality clear coat in a can. So if I ever needed to, like let's say I knew I couldn't keep this protected from the elements, I would spray it with that type of clear. Because it's simple, it's kind of expensive, it's like 20 bucks a can, but it does work out quite well. So, hope that answers any questions that were asked about the paint. And if anybody has any better ideas about the printed vinyl graphics, how to make them more durable, let me know. I'm open for ideas. Because you have no idea how long I sat here and stared at this thing trying to figure out how to make those graphics, you know, fuel proof. So, until next time. Oh, since we're here, the 310 is absolutely 100% ready to fly. Just waiting for warmer weather to get the plane outside, get the engines running. Counting down the days. We're getting close to spring. So I'll have a video back on that. Of course, when this gets ready to fly, I'll get a video on this for the first flights. But until then, see you later.